Hello, everyone. I'm guessing you can hear me. You all looked up. Perfect. Um, Nice to see everyone. I'm James. I'm commercial manager for Xtoy Media. Our stand is actually there. So at the end of the session, if you want to have any conversations or questions, feel free to come and see me and my colleagues just over there. Um, what I'll be talking to you about today is overcoming challenges to deliver hybrid or effective hybrid learning. So, the learning outcomes for today's session. So hopefully the first one will be understanding how to overcome the challenges that hybrid learning brings. The second one, learn how a global FMCG company has used hybrid training to support and enhance their training objectives. And lastly, we'll discover how next-gen remote and hybrid training environments could work for you and your business. But before all that, I will give you a quick overview about who we are and what we do. So Xtoy Media is one of 19 companies under the Stratacache umbrella, and we've got 28 locations globally. We have 20 years experience in providing technology for corporates and institutions globally. Our recent deployments with global partners across multiple industries includes the likes of Airbus, Nestle, IMD Business School, and Coca-Cola. Right, let's get to the fun stuff. And this probably is the crux of what I want to talk to you about today. As most of you have experienced or will be experiencing these challenges. First up, stakeholder support. So it isn't just about getting buy-in from other areas of the business to support you on your L&D journey. It goes beyond that. With the rise of hybrid learning, L&D teams must ensure that the business has the systems and capabilities in place to deliver hybrid learning programs at scale. Organizations have expedited their digital transformation strategies, and hybrid learning is now regarded as a necessity, not a nice to have. The challenge is to provide business plans to justify ROI and investment to support the ongoing development of hybrid learning programs. Coordination. Hosting a hybrid training session has added complexities over delivering an exclusively online or in-person session. You have to manage both elements, and thus the level of coordination doubles, and it involves extra effort to make sure that everyone receives the same communication and expectations before a session. Creativity. So organised creativity really isn't a thing. Having people join a hybrid session and take part in collective creativity can work. However, if you want people to actually be creative and think outside of the box, you might want to consider the opportunity to kick around ideas as part of smaller groups, or better still, provide individual thinking time. Lastly, you've got engagement levels. This one's a bit of a no-brainer, but the bigger the session, the harder it can be to manage engagement, and facilitators find it hard engaging with people who join remotely but have their cameras off. I know I've been guilty of that in the past. You may find that training and course materials that once worked no longer keep learners engaged, and there is a need to adapt for a hybrid learning environment. Another challenge is tracking learner progress and understanding if a learner has consumed and understood the objectives and outcomes of a session or a course. Within a hybrid session, tracking remote learners' progress becomes complex, and it relies on real-time assessment as well as data and analytics. The same applies for the in-room learners. You need to ensure that you're tracking their progress. Human connection. So I'd argue that this is a bit of a biggie. Hybrid learning makes it very difficult to establish and maintain a human connection between learners. How do you create the balance between those physically in the room and those in front of you? The human connection helps create engagement and drives participation levels pardon me, in a session, but it's a struggle for facilitators to manage that balance. Gone are the days where you can provide physical handouts to a team. Adapting course materials to work in a digital and hybrid space is a shift from what people have been used to. It requires more time and effort to blend the pedagogy with the technology. Your technology needs to enable your in-room participants to have their own individual experience of a session in the same fashion to the remote participants. Turning it off and on again, and that's not what we're actually talking about. Technical issues can take many different forms, but ultimately they all disrupt the learning as well as the teaching experience. Remote learners may experience issues with their bandwidth, sound problems, or more complex issues with software or computers. Depending on the severity, that they could make it almost impossible to obtain a good learning experience. So now think about also ensuring the connection between the virtual and the in-room learners. You create the environment, but the technology fails. It has to work seamlessly every time. Non-verbal cues. In addition to those challenges is the fundamental one where non-verbal cues are harder to distinguish, which results in a loss of retention and engagement. Asking questions, responding to questions, following requests, seeing reactions and interactions is a powerful tool. Overcoming these challenges. So providing everyone who is invited to the session with an equal learning experience, whether they're in the room or remote, is crucial. From having a seat in the room, either virtually or in person, gives each learner the opportunity to participate and engage during the session. This includes making it easy for everyone to speak and see each other as needed. Learners should be given the same task and course materials, irrelevant of their location. Recording the session also helps ensure inclusivity for those in different time zones to help them access the session after the session, where they can review it at a convenient time for them. Cameras on. Now this is a bit of a contentious one, I guess, but it's also self-explanatory. So if you can see someone and communicate with that person and provide eye contact, you create the environment where you can build trust and emotional connection. You can pick out other non-verbal cues such as a smile, a disagreed face, or an inquisitive pose. It's not about recreating the interactions that you would in person, but about creating other meaningful moments in the session that engage with everyone in the room or if they're virtual. A really great example of this is gallery view. Our clients have told us that this encourages cameras to be off. When you're not talking, everybody can see you at any one time. We've taken the decision to show the last 4 active speakers, so everyone can have their cameras on, but they aren't visible to everybody in a gallery view. This allows the facilitator to see all learners at any one given time. Engaging with all learners. So having a room that is set up in a way that works for both the in-room and remote learners is vital to your delivery, but also to their learning experience. It might mean moving things around, but make sure the screens with the remote learners are behind those in-room learners, so you can see as many people as possible during the session. You'll be able to pick up on those critical non-verbal cues, and by doing this, you can see things like smiles, nods, or looks of confusion and boredom. You need to express yourself when delivering training to bring energy and ensure participation levels are high. We're firm believers in a couple of things. You need the same level of visibility of the remote learner as you would the in-room participants, and you wouldn't have real-life participants so far away from the facilitator that made it impossible for them to engage with you. Secondly, like a real person, the virtual participant seats don't move. They stay where they are in their dedicated seat. Creating focus time is important to the success, gosh, I can't say S and C today, success of the training session. Encourage all learners to be present. If they're remote, make sure that their phones are down and that other work is closed off. To make this a little easier, interact with people as they enter the session, whether they're joining remotely or whether they're walking into the room physically. Your technology needs to be able to enable you to know if a remote learner is being attentive. It needs to compensate for a person being virtual. You want to subtly know whether they're paying attention, as if you would do so if someone was in the room. Breakout groups are very impactful if they're used correctly. Separate people into groups for smaller discussion. By changing the group size, you give people who are less comfortable speaking the opportunity to contribute. You'll get more ideas and contribution by doing this, as people will have the time and environment to speak up. The technology has to bridge the gap for you. It needs to be able to work in a hybrid manner. Separating hybrid huddle environments is really key. However, it's very difficult to achieve. Whatever work your team are doing in those hybrid groups needs to be available to the facilitator and achievable with technology, but it's often overlooked when considering the challenges of hybrid. The technical issues can be somewhat unpredictable, but there are certain things that you can do to mitigate certain issues and help yourself. You want remote learners to have a strong internet connection, and you want to make sure that the tech in the room works for the facilitator or the host. So it's always good to do a dry rehearsal and get comfortable with the technology. You need to think about these sessions as live broadcast environments. It's a TV show at the end of the day with an audience. You wouldn't just rock in. It doesn't, however, mean the technology needs to be time-consuming and complicated, but preparation is key to the success of your hybrid sessions. The most important and most difficult factor is to create an equal learning experience for all learners. Having dedicated seats for all of these learners is key. With each dedicated seat for all learners, you can now provide everyone with their unique perspectives inside of the room. As an example, the in-room participants will see you and your training materials from whatever angle they have selected for themselves as part of that in-room seating setup. Providing remote participants with unique perspective views makes it personal for them and allows you to interact with them on a one-to-one basis, capturing their attention and building their trust. Having all learners contribute and collaborate on the same course material at the same time can be incredibly powerful. An interactive whiteboard where the facilitator can load content with access to all learners possible opens the door for a more collaborative session. Okay, this is a biggie, and I've spoken about it quite a lot on stand today, but it's content sharing versus screen sharing. They are very different. So platforms where you can share your screen aren't necessarily going to provide your learners with the best place to learn and collaborate. Content sharing capabilities that visually bring to life training for all learners, whether that's using external devices or using smart annotations where you can revisit work in subsequent sessions, along with asset sharing, are powerful and they increase engagement. Do you want the whole class to annotate on something together? Do you want to get a Google document up so you can get everyone to update it in real time? Then you should be able to do that. You should be able to do those things. All the content should be accessible to everyone in the session, irrelevant of where they are located. Delivering engaging sessions using interactive tools such as polls and breakout groups to assess learning outcomes and get instant feedback from the group. Visual cues, I like this one. So vibrant visual cues to make hosting a session easier for the facilitator. Showing how remote learners have responded to poll questions, what groups they're in, if they've raised their hand, and if they're paying attention, are all cues that the facilitator can work with. So what you can see here is what we call the remote participant wall. So this is the facilitator in this example would be stood where the projector is, talking to these people, heads on the screens, and then you've got their different poll answers. So these little light-coloured ones here, where you'll see in the red is where someone has got their hand raised. So what that's telling the facilitator is they got their hand raised. So these are the visual cues that form part of what we offer. So you can see here, this lady's got a camera off, as an example. Track, measure, and understand the data behind your session. What's working and what isn't. Seeing how learners have contributed to a session and understand and answered polls are amongst the granular level of data that should be tracked and available to you. So what I'm now going to do is talk you through the customer journey of ours and discuss their challenges, the solution we put in place, and the outcomes that this has provided their business with. So the customer in question is Nestle. It says it at the bottom right-hand corner, if anyone didn't see that. And they have 2 hybrid rooms from X2O, and they're able to teach up to 120 learners at any one time, which has helped them be flexible to continue their courses and increase their global audience. The challenges that faced Nestle were born out of the pandemic, and they simply wanted to continue running learning and development programs. However, they were initially using Teams and Zoom, but they wanted something more, something better, and something more engaging. Engagement being the key factor for the senior leadership team, and they were the people that ultimately delivered those sessions. They wanted to create a productive environment that would work when people came back to the office, They needed to develop a solution that could be put in place for the team to continuously learn and upskill. So what was the solution? How did we work with them? So we were able to quickly deploy a one-room environment, reusing some of their existing infrastructure. And the space allowed remote learners to feel like they were physically in the room with the facilitator, providing that one-to-one connection, which was crucial for them. The senior management team wanted to have that pedagogical freedom and roam around like they would do in a traditional learning environment, and we permitted this. This created a prestige atmosphere with sessions in X2O being regarded as VIP within the organisation. I'm visual, so I like the next kind of 6 slides. This kind of brings to life what we do and how we've done it. So here are some initial concepts that we've worked on with Nestlé to help them visualize their space and what it could look like. So this is one of their rooms. So it's hybrid, obviously. You've got the in-room participants logging on their devices, each with their different microphones, and then you've got the remote participants joining behind them. I'll move out of the way so you can take a photo properly. And I think the next render is the same room, just a different image of that. So this is where the facilitator would be stood, and we provide this, which is called the confidence monitor. So this provides information such as the different camera angles in the room. So at a glance, they can see where they need to be stood, if there's anything on the chat, as well as other information on the whiteboard. And you can see we've got 2 heads per screen here. So we can provide anything between up to 1 to 8. But based on how far away they are, we deliberately put 2 heads per screen in this example. And I think that is the real room. Yeah, that's not a render. So the first 2 I showed you were real renders. This isn't a render. This is the actual room, and this is what it looked like. And if you think about everything that we've spoken about today, so everyone has a seat, deliberately, like we said. The remote learners are large enough. So I said you can have 8 heads on a screen, which is absolutely right, you can. But you wouldn't want to do that in this environment because they'd be too far away from the facilitator at the front. You wouldn't get those rich visual cues. You'd dilute that experience, and then you become a one-dimensional platform. Okay. If in-room learners talk, what we have as well is other cameras inside that room. So the camera would a microphone would detect them, and one of the in-room cameras would zoom in on that zone, and then they would be shown in the remote user interface for those remote participants to see. So that's how we show that. Right, I think... Yeah, that's not it. I've got a video, don't worry. That'd be a rubbish ending, wouldn't it? Yes, this video is from Nestlé, so I'll shut up and have a drink, and I think I'll play this video. Uh-oh.
What have the benefits been for you to use the one-room technology here at Nestlé?
Well, as you can see from the room behind me, it gives you an incredibly professional experience. You're not walking into a traditional auditorium with a single screen at the front and or a set of laptops or a really big TV screen. You get a very, very professional experience. So as human beings, we're influenced by that. Our environment has a tremendous influence on our learning experience. That's the first one. The second one is the scale of what we're able to do. You can get a lot of people, a lot of learners, but at the same time also a lot of speakers interacting with each other at the same time. The third benefit is the ability to go effectively into the breakout environment and do it in a way that's super cool. And I know that cool is probably the least professional word, but I really want to use it in our experience with the One Room. People need to feel that this learning experience is matched and on a good day exceeded by their experience with commercial technology. And you know, in learning, often we're a little bit behind. We don't always have the cool stuff available. One Room gives us that cool factor. And my more learned professionals or colleagues in the learning profession will go, but yeah, but cool's not important. It is. When it comes to learner experience, which has a fundamental impact on the effectiveness of your learning, it is very important that people have that. And this technology gives you that experience. It makes you feel that you've stepped out of your traditional day-to-day Teams or Zoom. And those are important technologies, don't get me wrong. But you've stepped out of that into this special environment that is professional and seamless. And you can connect with people and you can do all kinds of stuff. It really works for people. And we've certainly seen that from the feedback.
Thank you, Tanya. Perfect. So what you'll see here are other learning environments that we've created. So we've covered off kind of hybrid, the kind of top two right ones, the hybrid training environments, as well as hybrid classroom down here. But we also do other environments, so remote only, although we appreciate at the minute everyone is calling out for hybrid. This is the largest room in the world of its kind at the minute. This is remote only. That's IMD's room. That holds 120 remote active participants. That one's across 24 screens, which makes it the largest. But in essence, this room does the same, just with 16 screens, so you're able to do the same thing. So feel free to take photos of that if you like. So we work... I guess it's my laptop. So we work with our customers throughout the whole journey, and the more work we do up front, the better for you and for us. So we help define your use case, understand if that's multiple use cases, work to get kind of stakeholders on board as well at this stage. We'll then design that experience, so some of those renders that you saw will work with you as part of any proposal or any concepts or any next steps to design all that and visualize that, and then work with you for budgetary and any ROI statements that you need for your internal business case. That's it from me. We are based, like I said, over there. Unless anyone has any questions, I'm finished. Cool. Thanks very much.